Hello everybody and welcome back to How to Stormwork, where we go through all the things you can do in Stormwork and how to do them. The first few episodes will be how to build a boat. If you missed the first episode, we built this boat here. It does not have anything in it. It is just the shape of the boat and a couple of dials and a driver's seat. That is all we did last episode. We also added some rudders back here while we were building the boat. If you want to follow along, I recommend going back to the first episode and watching that. If you are just joining in to figure out how to work engines and propulsion, then this is the episode for you. In the start of the game, in career mode, you only have one engine, which is the small engine. If you grab a part, any part, you can actually use the engine if you wanted to. It's a little bit more difficult to see though. If you hover over these, you can see what this engine needs. So it needs out coolant, it needs in coolant, it needs fuel, it needs exhaust, and it needs air. Back here, or down here, you have your power, which is what will be delivered to go to your propulsion, which we're going to place in now. We're going to use the small prop because that's all we have available to us. We're going to turn on symmetry, and we're going to place our prop here. We're going to have two. You don't have to have two. You can have one if you want one. It will probably be better on gas if you did one. Although I'm not positive on that, so don't take my word on that. I don't know about that one. So just to get the propulsion or the power out of the way, we're going to do basic setup of engine here. Again, you can click and drag these items. Sometimes this is a little bit more fidgety because it will try to shape it, but like there, it worked just fine. So we have power going to our props, just using straight pipes. You can use enclosed pipes if you want to. You don't have to use these. I also like color coding my engine parts. For example, the coolant would be red and white, just because, well, not red and white, white and blue. I mean, red and blue. So there's a couple ways you can do this with coolant. You can either, I'm going to turn it back to right so we can see what's going on here. You can have a fluid heat radiator, but this is very inefficient, especially in the beginning of the game. You can have one of these, but it's not going to keep it as cool as what I'm about to do. You would basically have to have multiple of these to cool down a single engine. It's very inefficient. The only time I would actually use these is if you're using bigger engines. This engine though is pretty simple. You can take a fluid port, which is used to do a number of things. You can pump fluid inside, so like you can pump water or gas or diesel or oil inside your boat if you wanted to. You can use it to pump in air or out air, but we're basically just using it to pump in water. It's going to take the ocean water and use that to cool down the engine, and then it's going to expel the heated water from the engine, and it's going to keep doing that cycle over. And that's a good way to keep the engine cool. You can only use the brush tool when painting these, or you can use also replace color, obviously. We're not going to do that though. When you do use the replace color, that might have just changed all that. It did. Whoops. It replaces all the color, the same color on the ship. So just keep that in mind. We're going to color these bottom ones again. Okay, so that's all coolant. My exhaust go in the back, just so I don't have to see it. That looks like a good spot. We're going to get one of those as well. And there's our exhaust. So our exhaust is going to exit in the back here. We're going to paint this section here. That leaves fuel and air. Air is pretty simple, and so is fuel, but air is more simple. So there's a couple ways you could do this. You can have it go straight up. You can have it go straight up and just put one of these blocks down here. Although I don't recommend that. If you watched my series on career mode that I'm doing at the moment, you realize that's not a good idea. What the best way to do a exhaust, not exhaust, but a air intake is getting it as high as you can. On top of the boat's cabin is the best. We're not going to do that. We're going to show you a different way you can do it. And a couple different parts that you can use. We're just going to drag this all the way down here. We're going to use this pipe just to drag it up. And then we're going to use the enclosed pipes. These are regular pipes, but they are enclosed in a block. These are watertight. You cannot get water through these. So if you needed to get some sort of fluid, but don't have a way because you would drill a hole in the side of your boat, you can use one of these. Okay, so we have a pipe going down here. We need a angled piece again. We're going to rotate it correctly. If you do not see these lines, you can come over here to direction arrows, turn that on, and you can see what direction these pipes are facing in. We're going to have another straight piece going up to there, and then we're going to have our air going through there. So that's our air under control. We're going to get another pipe. Let's do 2 tanks of fuel. We're going to use medium tanks. You can use small ones if you want, although I'm going to use medium. And there's our fuel. This is all the items you can connect to each other. So this is a number output. You can use this to connect to one of your dials, for example, to get the temperature readout and the RPS readout. Just so we don't forget what these numbers represent, we're going to use the select tool here. Select this, and this was the engine temps. We're just going to max it out at 100. So in this menu, you have your display name. This is what's going to be showed when you highlight this. Your min value, so the min value is the lowest the number can be, and the max value is the highest number that it can be. We're going to max it out at 100. I don't think we're going to get 100 temps. It's probably going to be more around 50. But that just gives us a little bit of leeway. If it gets to 100, we will know something's wrong and something needs to be fixed because the engine's about to blow. This one was the engine RPS, which is the rates per second that the engine is doing. If we select the engine, we can see that the RPS limiter is at 20 RPS at the moment. We're going to raise it up to 25. Actually, we're going to raise it up to 100. There's no reason not to. Again, we're going to use 100 as the max number. The min value can be 0. You don't have to change that. I will though. So now that's the engine RPS and engine temps. We can also do a fuel tank. So we can have one for fuel 2 and fuel 1. This is both at 100. Is max. There is another way you can do this, and I'll show you that in a later video when we're doing logic and microcontrollers. Okay, so we have battery charge. We're going to connect one battery charge. I said one battery to a dial, just so we can see what the battery level is. These are always at 1. They are not 100 like the fuel tanks. These are valued at 1 or 0. Or 0 through 1, I should say. And they both pretty much equal out. So if one is 0.98, this one is 0.98 as well, I believe. Now, that's the dial setup. How do we move? Okay, well, we're going to need to get our rotation going. So we're going to drag this up to our seat here. Our seat has a couple of options you can use. You can have A and D, you can use left and right if you want to. I want to use A and D for our movement or our turning. We're going to connect those to both of our rudders. Our throttle, there's a number of ways you can do this as well. Me personally, I'm going to have a lever. I'm just going to drill in a slot here. Make it white to go with the color. And again, empty is negative, positive is solid. So we're going to fix it in like that. And we're going to connect this throttle to here. We're going to rename this throttle. I forget how to spell throttle. So you can change, with levers, you can change a number of things. Min value, max value again, and the start value. We're going to keep it at 0 so that we don't have to worry about it. We are going to change the max value to 100. There is one more thing we need to do. The starter. So this is a different kind of input. This is a on-off input. If we drag this up to 1, so this is our hotkeys. This is our directional buttons. So WASD and the arrow keys. These are hotkeys. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to go into the seat here and note that the starter is on 1, and we're also going to make it a push. The difference between toggle and push, if you push it once, well, if it's toggle, if you push it, then it stays on. The only way it turns off is if you push that key again. Push, you have to hold it to use that key. I'm going to name the seat driver as well. You don't need to do that. That's just me, personal preference. Now, we're going to go into the electric field in Logic, and we're going to connect everything to each other. We don't need to connect that, but I'm going to. And then we're going to drag this down, connect the engine with the batteries and the engine with the rudders. Now we have a working boat. If we spawn it, you'll see that the rudders are outside. So we are going to have to add some weighted blocks to weigh it down. So we're going to add a few weighted blocks back here to weigh it down just a tad. So that looks decent. We could do a little bit more. Actually, we could do a little bit more in the back as well in the front. And that should be good. This is sort of just guesswork until you get what you need or what you're looking for. We could add a little bit more in the back here. Okay, that might be a little bit too much, but that's decent enough. We're going to sit down in our seat. As you can see, our engine RPS, our engine temps are there. Our fuel is there for our first fuel tank, and then our other fuel is there. I noticed that those are higher than 100. I made a mistake. So when you max these out, you're going to have to put 184 if you want the dial all the way at the end. If not, it's going to continue going around until it reaches 0. We have our battery there, we have our dials. You have, if you set it up correctly, and you have your starter, you can turn the starter on, turn up the throttle, and now we're going. We can check our fuel here. It's doing pretty decent. A lot better than I was expecting. We can look at our battery. We're losing battery because we don't have any way to generate battery at the moment. And we have engine temps. They're staying pretty close to 38, so that's pretty good. Downside is we're moving as slow as a turtle would be, but we can fix that in the next episode. On our way back, I'll explain what we would do. In the next episode, we will go discuss a little bit more complex on what you can do with your boats, and well, specifically your engines. We're going to talk about gearboxes, clutches, and of course everything to do with them, basically. We're also going to talk about generators, which is how we generate battery. Until next time. Okay, so that is our boat for this episode. Let's do a little bit of rundown here. Let's turn off the grid lines, turn off the symmetry. This is our boat for now. We added a few things. We added a air intake. We added the most important stuff that we could have. The engines, the props, the fuel tanks. A way to cool the engines. Well, engine. We only have one engine at the moment. You can have multiple. Keep that in mind as well. You can have our batteries. Next episode, we will discuss how to charge our batteries, more complex ways on setting up your engines. For example, gearboxes, clutches, etc. And for example, gearboxes, clutches, etc. That would be it for today. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and comment below. If you want to keep up to date with later episodes on this series, please subscribe, hit that bell icon, and that's it for now. Bye bye.